My goal for this session, primarily, the primary goal is to keep you awake after a pasta lunch. So hopefully I can do that. We're going to, so we had some great general strategy, state of the world sessions this morning, followed by Sam's very good in-depth dive into the Kynetx app builder and how you build applications. I'm going to bump it back up a level and talk about endpoints. The CEO should not be allowed to touch controls.
I turned up the volume yesterday.
So I'm going to talk about the concept of endpoints. We've already had several questions about endpoints. Hopefully we can talk about the different endpoints, how they're used, strategies for selecting endpoints. As Kristen said, I'm the VP of VAR Services for Kynetx. So I am responsible for implementing new VARs and helping VARs develop ideas for their Kynetx products or Kynetx-backed products. So if you are thinking about what you can do with Kynetx and you'd like to talk further and get more details about the kinds of relationships that you can have beyond the developer program, which we're going to talk about, I'm your guy for that. So talking about endpoints, today, here's the basics of what you're going to learn. So endpoints are what make KNS work on the client. Your options for endpoints are plentiful in the browser domain. We'll talk about other domains. And I'm also going to talk about the current state of thinking about endpoint selection. And this is an evolving thing. We'll have opportunities to talk about how it's evolving and the vision that we have for endpoint development. But I'm going to start with the story. Okay, so what you see up there, Roy, I want you to pay attention to this. What you see up there, Roy's our CFO, so I wanted him to see the future Kynetx airplane. This will probably be the second airplane once we get to that point. This is a Pilatus PC-12. There are actually a few of us that are pilots at Kynetx. I'm actually a flight instructor, and this is a very economical executive travel
It really
airplane.
is, Roy.
It's a very economical executive travel airplane. Plus, it can be serviced while we're at meetings with Axiom because the servicing center is right by the Axiom office. Anyway, so here's the story. A couple years down the road, I'll just stick with handheld. Thanks, Chris. A couple years down the road, we're flying back from meetings with clients in our Pilatus PC-12, coming over the Rockies, cloud layers, rain, not visual meteorological conditions for flying. So the thing that we want to have happen is we want to get the airplane on the ground with all the people inside, safe and sound, and preferably be able to fly the airplane again. So there's Salt Lake. We want to get to Salt Lake and land safely. The way that's done is through what's called an instrument approach procedure. And an instrument approach procedure gives the pilot instructions on how to navigate and descend and what minimum visibility conditions he needs, those types of things. So it's really a program for the pilot to execute to land the plane successfully. And I've got up here two examples of instrument approach procedures for Salt Lake runway 34 right. The one on the left is a VOR DME approach, which is a very simplistic approach. It has high minimums. It has its own factors that you need to consider. The one on the right is an ILS, a Category 3 ILS, which means that you can have zero visibility and land the airplane safely. If you're in an airplane that's equipped with the right instrumentation to be able to make that kind of landing. And these instrument approach procedures actually are updated every 28 days. What you're looking at right now are the current instrument approach procedures for Salt Lake runway 34 right. Tomorrow these expire. Tomorrow would be these would be illegal to use. You'd have to get the new ones. So instrument approach procedures, so there's lots of different kinds. Each requires specific equipment. Each has its own benefits and drawbacks. They're updated constantly, and the end result is a safe landing. So I'm drawing an analogy of that with Kynetx endpoints. So there's lots of different kinds of Kynetx endpoints. Each requires specific equipment, each has its own benefits. They're updated constantly, and the end result is a KNS application executing on the client application you want it to execute on. So, in general, this is a picture of how endpoints work. And I have to tell you that being the person responsible for IP filings for a company with a very active blogger for the CTO is a difficult thing. In fact, what I'm talking about here, the provisional patent application was filed on it actually yesterday at 5 o'clock, otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it at the conference, even though Phil blogs it. Anyway, to make a long story short, unbeknownst to Phil, we're gonna have blogging policies at Kynetx going forward. Anyway, so endpoints work in the following manner. You have Kynetx Network Services, which has an application that's been developed. What you saw Sam do this morning, where he was in App Builder creating an application, he was actually creating something which lives in our network service in the cloud. And then you have the client application, typically a browser. There needs to be some sort of endpoint which connects the Kynetx application with the client, and that relationship can be controlled by a controller. So with the example of a card selector can be an endpoint controller. The endpoint, or with the card selector, the actual endpoint that makes things happen is the browser extension that's installed along with the card selector. So this is a model that we believe translates across multiple application domains. Right now, as we've talked about, the domain that we're focusing on is browsers. This picture right here is a little bit more technical, but the concept is we have a vision for deploying endpoints and endpoint controllers for multiple application domains: email, telephony, installed client apps, distributed systems that, really anything that could be augmented by our network-based rules engine. I actually had an interesting discussion with a conference attendee right before this presentation about a potential application which would require email endpoints. And so there's a lot of discussion about email client applications and creating endpoints for those. But right now, what is available, the endpoints that are available are focused on the browser domain. And browser endpoints that are available are the following. So these are the options. These are your instrument approaches that you can fly with Kynetx applications right now. Site tagging, bookmarklets, the proxy server, which you've seen examples of as you've been sitting here connected to the network. Single-purpose browser extension, an OEM browser extension, and information cards. This is how I have our endpoints categorized right now. So we're going to go through each of these and talk about the benefits of each of them, why you might select one over another, and have a discussion. So site tagging was the first endpoint that Kynetx deployed. In fact, our original pilots, which I operated last year, used site tagging exclusively. It's fairly simple to deploy if you are the website administrator. You simply insert the tags. And your web server becomes the distribution channel for, welcome back, Craig Burton. Anyway, your web server, the web server hosting yeah, please repeat the question, Craig.